Welcome back to the New Zealand Property Podcast and video series, sponsored kindly by Harcourt's Property Ventures at Alexandra Park. Sitting beside me is an investor that's been in my database for a long time, Ryan Spearman. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, mate. Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for coming along. And nice to actually do a podcast in person. It's not always like that.
It's nice to get away from the laptop, eh?
Absolutely is. So that's all good. What we haven't done on the podcast really for a few years is actually just talk to an investor and see what just learn a little bit about their journey, and you listening and watching this can take little bits out, and just like you no doubt did when you started, and in a few ways you sort of done that. This is a podcast for everybody. It started off with investors, so we'll give the investors a little something today to enjoy and sort of hear a story. So before we sort of start, I mean, a lot of people, they go, Ryan goes, oh, they were lucky. Their mum and dad had $10 million of property and $1 million of cash, sort of thing. I think your story is a bit more like mine. Just before you started investing, and how old did you start? Were you when you started investing? Just to set the scene.
Well, I started pretty young, and I guess I was lucky in some respects. You're always lucky if you end up in a good spot. But really, it's pretty normal family, normal Kiwi lifestyle. Kind of headed into a broken family in my teenage years, and so that slows down the income of the parents. But because Mum was trying to, find alternative ways to get by, she got introduced to property investing herself. So she bought a rental place. And then it must have been in my early 20s, she sold it and wanted to buy another one, but was shifting overseas and said, Ryan, do you want to go halves in a property? And I was like, don't know, yeah, whatever, okay, cool. And I did, and
that's how many
that was my
start by accident.
Yeah, that was my start, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, and so you brought a half a place pretty well with your mum.
Yeah. I thought that was a good way of doing it. Looking back on it, I thought it was fine at the time. I didn't quite realise the significance, but I think it was a good way of doing it, and I'd do it again, or encourage my kids or someone else to do it.
Yeah, and many people will do that, and they might even go, hey, kids, get half a deposit for a home and buy half, and whether that's these days, because it's hard for kids to get into property, they might do that as a stepping stone for themselves to live in rather than an investment, and or both.
Yeah, it was before I bought a family home or a home for myself, so that whole thing was pretty foreign.
Yeah.
And it was a good way that Mum could help me without giving me any cash. She didn't have enough cash to give me anything.
Yeah.
But it was obviously an extreme help to get into this property.
Yeah.
She put down half, and I just had a mortgage for the other half.
Yeah. Perfect.
And
okay.
she guaranteed it and all of that sort of stuff.
And where was that? What?
That was Mount Wellington.
Oh, Mount Wellington, Auckland. Okay.
Yeah, cross-lease Mount Wellington.
No, cross-lease, it's the way to start property investing.
Honestly,
Nothing wrong with cross-leases, by the way. I think cross-leases are the...
Yeah, totally.
Some people just get all hung up on buying them. I don't know why.
I didn't know what it was, to be honest. If you want to get into that deal, that was...
not
a shambles.
Shambles?
Not a shambles. No, not a shambles in the least, but I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
No idea what the price should be, what the offer should be. Because Mum was overseas, I was doing all the paperwork. And honestly, the agent was like, "What? So Ryan, what price are you going to put down?" I'm like, I don't know. And he told me a number. I was like, okay, and I signed it. And we bought the house.
And we spoke a bit early on, just before we started the podcast, a bit about that, and flipping. Talked about flipped a lot and what have you in the past, and when you keep properties, and ones I've kept, I've always done very well, and that's the whole thing. It's interesting. People try to pick the bottom of the market. Well, if you read about it in the paper, guess what? You're 2 or 3 months too late.
Right.
And
that's right.
Not telling you anything there, but
well, fortunately, I wasn't picking anything. I was just there. I was along for the ride.
So that was your first dabble into it, and as many people did, they brought something really not knowing too much about what they're doing. What was the next step? How long did you wait before you looked at buying the next property, and what did you do in the meantime?
That was an awesome experience, just for getting over that, and then getting over the mindset of being an owner and a landlord. And because Mum wasn't around, it was kind of my job to look after it. We had a property manager, and so I was learning to liaise with him and making decisions about the property, and tidy up this and do that. I remember I used to, show up to the property every now and again to do work and pretty much be younger than the tenants and worst car. I remember locking my keys in the car once in front of them. It was so embarrassing. But anyway, maybe 2 years after that, me and my girlfriend, wife at the time, we must have been married at that stage, we looked for our own first property.
Okay.
So that was the next step.
Right.
Not that long after, but having the first property made it a lot easier to get into the second property because I was able to essentially borrow against it and get into this place in Avondale, which was a really rough do-up, but it had a granny flat out the back.
Okay.
And I knew that was, I was onto a winner there.
And you lived in it, rented the back out?
Yeah, did up the back
front.
first of all.
Okay.
And then got tenants in, and they subsidised a massive portion of the mortgage, which was fantastic. And then we did the front house up, and
we see a lot of places like that these days, and we just think, why wouldn't you do exactly what you were saying?
Yeah.
For someone to get in because they're paying you these days, $400 for a one bedroom out the back.
Yeah.
For if they're that, geez, that's $1,600 a month towards your mortgage, which is substantial. So why wouldn't more do that? Then you got the chance, as you did, to renovate that. And I guess, did you then go and renovate your front house at some stage or not?
Yeah. So we did the bare minimum to start with to get us in because it was pretty gross. It wasn't a deceased estate, but it was pretty close to it.
Yep.
Old lady had been there forever, and carpet in the toilet and all of that sort of stuff. It was
beautiful.
Yeah, it was literally settlement day. We're ripping it up. Didn't need tools to rip the carpet up. It was so threadbare.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was awesome. It was so cheap, and it had a good bit of land. Had the granny flat, and I think even back then, 2006 or whatever it was, $200 a week.
Yeah.
Coming from the back was massive.
Oh, it would be. Yeah.
It was massive, and that gave me a real first-hand experience of being an actual landlord. No property manager, actual tenants to deal with, actual things to break down and fix, and relationships to kind of foster and stuff. It was cool.
Great. So by default, you learn about property management, you learn about renovations, and learn about contracts and that sort of thing. So had you started getting education or reading and stuff by that stage, or
no? So
what was the next step after that?
The next step after that was nothing. I just sat and did nothing and didn't really think about it too hard. I just thought, I'm an investor now. It was a typical Auckland mindset where, as far as I knew, to be a property investor, you just owned another house and you had to afford to be able to pay the mortgage on two houses, So I was bleeding cash. But I was pretty young, and both me and my wife were working, so two incomes, and we could afford to pay it. And looking back on it, that was our, although we were just paying interest and just getting by, that was the point in the journey where you are investing all your spare dollars and sacrificing today's fun for tomorrow's gain. You know what I mean? Didn't feel like it at the time. It was actually just frustrating.
Yeah, and as we've seen the last 2 years, obviously there hasn't been too many gains. In fact, the other way around. So it's and you can only go. That's why the average is 3 properties an investor, or the most many get to 2 or 3 because they can't afford to. Yeah,
I had no concept that I could go further or that it was even possible. Never heard of a property breaking even or anything like that. It was,
So how many years after that second property, your own property you're living in, did you actually hear about or find out or go, shit, I can actually do something and make a bit of a business from
really,
this?
Once I stopped getting my education from barbecues and work and stuff like that, it was ages. So we lived like that for must have been about 5 years. Had our first kid in that house.
Yep.
Outgrew it. About to have our second kid. So we shifted out of. We needed to shift out of that house. It was only 2 bedrooms, pretty small. So we sold the house with Mum. Kept the house with the granny flat because I at least had enough nous to realise that it was in a better it was better area. It was big land and 2 incomes. Bought up the road, real close, and shifted up the road, and we held both houses for about 5 years, and I think it was at about that period I started educating myself for, I don't know why, I just became interested in it. I think I went down a couple of different financial advice avenues, and that's what led me to actually learn a bit more about property investing.
Okay. So
And the fact that it was expensive and painful to own both houses.
Yeah. And you got choices at that
And
stage,
scary.
and a lot of people, they bail and that's it. And sometimes you're that close to some brilliance in life,
Yeah.
and you bail too early. And so you've got a 10-year, you've got a whole decade going, ready from when you first started to when you actually got a bit serious in this and thought, okay, and how did you educate yourself?
That was about 2017. It was books. It was all just books to start with, and then I kind of a while later found podcasts, and I mean I didn't talk to real people for quite some time. But it must have been around then that I first came across you, and I don't even know how I came across you. Someone put me onto you as a property finder and educator, and we chatted, and I actually got quite a lot from our conversations a couple of times on the phone, but I wasn't ready, I don't think. I just wasn't quite ready. But anyway, I did get advice to sell that place in Avondale because it was costing so much, and by this stage we must have been two under 2 or under 3 kids. Just me on my freelance income, which was really sporadic, up and down, and 2...
Banks don't like too much.
Nah, it was more me. It was 2 Auckland quite large mortgages, and I'd realised that the value had risen so much in that rental property. We sold it and cleared the debt on both places, so I was mortgage free. And that was around 2017, and it was all timed in with me reading books and going, okay, so you need to actually have a plan, get some cash flow, be able to buy more and more and more and more. And so that timed perfectly, and I was able to leverage off the equity in our place and start buying some sensible properties and building an actual portfolio.
And interesting, from the purely investment aspect of it, you'd only done Auckland, bought in Auckland at that stage, and obviously we all know Auckland's the most expensive, and but it's usually has the most growth. I'll say usually, because we see people look at this going, I think you're wrong, Mark, in the last 2 years. But so what did your education say? Why did it tell? Because I don't think you brought in Auckland next, did you? You went
No, I
elsewhere.
didn't. That was when I started moving out. So basically, I keep reading that these people were buying properties that after all their expenses, they were still left with rent. Even after their mortgage, they were still left with rent and a profit. And if you buy enough of them, that little bit of profit can turn into lots of profit and get rid of your, you kind of replace your regular income with it. And I didn't believe it. Book after book, I'd read it. It's like, oh no, it's because it's American. Oh no, that doesn't work here. Nah, that's no good. Nah. And then I heard that there were places within New Zealand that broke even. That's all I was keen on, break even. Break even. I was still in that capital gains mindset, that Auckland thing of buy a house, hold it, and wait for it to go up. And that's what put me on to Rotorua to start with. And I basically got a list of every house for sale in Rotorua, talked to every agent down there, and teed up private viewings. Drove down at 5 a.m, went to every house on the market in Rotorua, drove home, did that a few times, and went, oh yeah, those units are cheap. And they're renting pretty well. And so I just bought one. And because I had so much equity and was working lots, I had a decent income. It's so easy to buy. And the rent covered everything. I had a real basic rudimentary spreadsheet. And I've just kind of slowly fleshed that out as time's gone on.
And that was also a block of four flats?
No, that was a one individual unit in another block. I had no concept of what was desirable or what wasn't desirable, but this was the beginning of me actually taking positive action towards doing something.
That's your first venture outside of Auckland, I guess, too.
Yeah. That was me
you
testing the water, and I self-managed it and all of that sort of stuff. But it was like not long after, months later, I bought another one around the corner, slightly more expensive but slightly nicer. And again, it was just so easy. And then after that, 3 came up in the original block.
Yep.
And for not much more, and I was like, oh yeah. And the rental assessment from the agent was massive.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, nah. I rang them up. I said, no, you can't get that. That doesn't work. Well, I've got one. It's not getting that much. And they're like, nah, that's how much it is. So I was like, oh, well, if you can get that much, you have to manage all my other ones because I'm doing it so wrong. And they're like, yeah, fine. It was like $100 more or something.
Yeah.
I was so glad I came across that early, and I just gave it all away. I was like, wait,
a good property manager's worth there.
I don't know what I was
a lot.
thinking. It was good. It was nice. Again, just to educate myself a little bit on managing slightly different tenants from what I've been used to.
I think everyone should do it for just even a short time to they get a perspective of what it is. What they don't do is, I guess, is like in Auckland the last few years, property prices have been pretty tough, but rentals have just kept going up and up, and you can rent something going, oh, it's pretty good, but it's it's $100 less than it is. Just like
you got no concept.
Yeah, just like 3 years ago when the market was going like that, I had some friends that sold a house privately and go, geez, I got $100K above CV. I didn't want to go, well, I don't want to be a dick sort of thing, and say, actually, you could have got 250 or 300 more than CV, but because you're in the market, so that's where the property managers also have their place.
Well, they had 50 tenancies on the book or something, and I had one.
Yeah.
And I was making mates with the people who lived there, and they were lovely
Big
people,
mistake.
and it was so good, And it's like, it was ridiculous.
Okay. Oh, that's all good. So, Road Rail was treating you well then? So
it was
you got
good.
The whole block of
By the time I got the extra 3 that came up for sale, I had, really kind of fleshed out my spreadsheet and figured out your expenses versus your income and what they were actually making each month, and that was really interesting. But it was then that I had a bit of confidence, and I wanted to go bigger. But I also wanted to get away from these little bitsy ones in amongst other things, because I could already see it was slowing it down. It wasn't, I wanted to own the land, I wanted to control the whole lot and all of that. So I actually contacted owners in the area, and found a guy who owned this block of 4. He lived in Tauranga. He'd inherited it from his dad some time ago, and hadn't put the rents up in. It's been the same tenants for like 20 years or something. Hadn't put the rents up for 12 years, and it was just falling to pieces. It was disgusting, and he was doing it up himself, driving to and from Tauranga, trying to do it up. And I think I just got hold of him at just the right time. And he was like, "Yep, take it, please, as fast as you can."
Cool. Okay.
And I did a massive reno, and that was when I went, okay, this is my strategy.
This is it.
Got it. Buy crappy places that are massively under rented, do them up, get a massive equity boost, massive rental boost, and I think I added like 20 grand or more to my income, just like that, just on one property. I was like, oh, I don't need many of these to make it work.
Yep. No, that's good. And just a few, even to this stage here, we're probably now close to 15 years from when you first brought your first thing. You had this sort of 10-year break almost, apart from shifting house once. What's some just 3 or 4 tips? We'll play a game. We go one each. Just a few. What did you do, or hints or tips to? Obviously, the first one's time.
Yes.
Time is a big thing, because time you learn. You do a lot of things, I guess, over that period.
Time and it was just letting that Auckland stuff compound. I didn't fully grasp that it made a big impact there, and it made it so much easier to purchase those places.
Yeah.
I could have probably done what I did in Rotorua without it, if I had a bit more savvy about lending and a bit more hustle and a bit more. But when you're that fresh, it's quite scary, and I think that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Funny, I remember when people always go, oh, they were lucky, the market was good back then. If only I got them back then.
Yeah.
It's really, really funny. And it's one of the things I've really learned over the 20 years for me. I'm still a newbie with property.
Yeah,
but
same.
20 years going
100%.
hard. But is back when I started in the early 2000s or so, it was God, 5-10 years ago I could buy this place for 100k, and now there's no way you can keep this cash flow, this cash flow thing going, or break even, or whatever, or reno to improve. But then we just, as the market goes, goes up and dips a bit and goes up.
Yeah.
It happens now, and when you did, which is not that long ago, and it's happening right now. Right now, obviously the market, savvy investors have been in there buying, and will be for the next 12 months, I guess. So it's just a bit of a mental thing, and what you spoke about before she started too was about taking action. That's one of the things that's
the biggest thing. Like today, I don't think those first ones I bought, I wouldn't buy them today. Yeah. But I'm so stoked I bought them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I would not have found where I was going to if I hadn't have bought them.
Yeah. And even that's buying the one property, especially if you're younger, you're watching this if you're young, you buy one property, and especially when the market's lowest like it is now, I guess, but just buy one property and just wait. You decide in 5 or 10 years what you're going to do. Yeah. And you'll have a pretty good head start no matter where you are. You don't have to guess the timing all the time. As I said, you were asking your agent what to pay. bad idea, mate.
Honestly, I cringe when I think about that.
Yeah, but time
offer.
Time helps you, and that's that's what it is. So
yeah, it was awesome.
Cool. So what now was there? There's more of a story to go, I guess. From,
So that was
Taronga.
That first one. That first, my first kind of what I call my active investing was late 2017. Then 2018, I bought the individuals. It must have been early 2019. Bought that block of 4. Yep. Maybe it was late 2018. And then I realised I want to spread out. I don't want to do Rotorua anymore. I know I can do it remotely. I want to go a bit larger in terms of the market and just branch out a bit.
Yep.
So I started looking into Dunedin. I heard there were some good yields down there, and I made a
university students and what have you.
Yeah, just another market, and I kind of connected with a property manager this time before I started really looking. She put me in touch with an agent that sold those sort of properties. Again, I knew I was looking for blocks of flat, and sure enough, he did have something, and he was like, "This was." Like days, you remember at the beginning of the very first COVID, they said it was like Monday, and they said we're going to lock down on Friday.
Right.
Yep. I rang him on Monday, and he was like, "Yeah, I have got a place on. I've got the listing, but we're not going to market it until this whole lockdown thing has happened."
Right.
I was like, "Oh, are you telling me that there's this property for sale and no one's going to know about it except for me?"
Yeah.
So I was able to negotiate it with him for like 2 weeks before I even got it under contract.
Yep.
During the whole lockdown.
Good time. He'd be a bit panicky about what's going on.
It was petrifying. All of us knew it felt like it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And that was the classic. Do the opposite of what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
I just knew that was what was going on. And I was like home from work. Obviously, my work stopped. I'm in the film industry, so you can't film during that sort of work. I'm just going to pretend to be a full-time investor, and so I did. And
good time to do it.
It was awesome. It was awesome. So they had 3 renovated flats, 1 unrenovated flat. All of the rents were as if it was still unrenovated, because they didn't want to up them for whatever reason, and I guess they got nervous, or they were running out of cash, needed to sell. Then the lockdown happened. They were really nervous, so got a great price.
Yeah,
and I bought it.
Great. Well, that's good. So you must be keen to get some more over,
yep.
or looking over the
COVID
time.
4 or 5 months later, we did the same again in Christchurch. Another block of 4. That needed a massive reno. Okay,
well that's pretty good. So then you've got a real diversity in Auckland, Taronga, Rotorua, Christchurch, and Dunedin, and which are all great places of the bigger city to the next tier underneath, sort of thing.
Yeah, so that was 2020, and things were really heating up then, you know, and so basically after that Christchurch one, I couldn't make my numbers work. The prices had gotten too high and the rents hadn't lifted quite as fast. Even though the interest rates starting to drop pretty nicely then. Bank didn't want to know me by that stage. I'd borrowed so much in such a short space of time, and by then it was just me working again. My wife had kind of had 5 years off with the kids, then went back to part-time. I think it was around that 2020 that she stopped working, or just after that 2020. So I didn't buy anything again until last year.
Right.
Got into a little bit of trading.
Yep.
Did that beforehand. Just I did a course and learned how to do that, and that was awesome. Did a couple of trades and made a little bit of money.
Yep. Whereabouts, New Zealand?
They were in Auckland.
In Auckland?
They were in Auckland.
Cool.
And that was cool. I enjoyed that, and it was nice to make a bit of money. But ultimately, I just wanted to buy more blocks of flats.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's an awesome story, sort of how you've sort of grown through and learnt and stayed doing nothing. But the you had your big spending spree, I guess, over COVID, and
so cool.
the banks go through. In fact, I remember it was about that time they looked at all investors, and they were really cutting down on investors, and they were talking about the LVRs and what have you, and a whole lot of things. So it's I like your story. So it's a simple story, because it's a very successful story where you are at the moment. You're still growing, but it's simple sort of the processes you've taken, but you've got to get out there and do it. And you've gone through. You haven't been in a hurry. And that's important to do that. And once you've worked it out, you sort of had a bit of a plan, but you've also been willing to, as you do, you have a plan, but life changes, and sometimes you modify those plans.
There's just
slightly.
things that change all the time, and so you have to modify it. Like the laws changed dramatically, tax laws changed dramatically, interest rates changed dramatically, and things change, but you just got to keep going. My income dropped off dramatically, half through choice and half just because the industry's pretty up and down, and that's what happened. But then I really pushed the boat out last year, and I could see it was there really were no one buying, and I mean, if I could make a deal work like in this environment now and last year, then in 3, 4, 5 years time it would be amazing. And so pushed the boat out and found another deal last year.
Okay. Whereabouts was that?
That was back in Rotorua.
Okay.
So
nice.
by last year, I was just like, I need to look everywhere because deals weren't popping up anywhere. So I just put an offer on everything I could find, basically, with numbers that worked for me. And they were embarrassingly low numbers compared to either the price on the property or what I knew the agent was after or whatever. But I always told the agent, looks like, this is not what you want. You're really not going to like my offer, but I'm making offers. And so I did, and they didn't care in the least.
Well, back then, I mean, we were there, and there was like middle of last year, early last year, they were hard times for an agent to get a deal across the line.
There was nothing coming in. There were no offers coming in, so they were happy to take my offer, and then were very polite about it and said, no, like you said, it's not working. Except for this most recent one. It was like, it still didn't work, but he didn't say it was miles away. I was like, oh, okay. And I hadn't seen it, and I just had a random budget in mind for the reno. So I was like, well, why don't I just drop this random budget and increase my offer a little bit? And if it doesn't work out in due diligence, so be it. And then eventually, like that, and we found a number, and it worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. No, that's good stuff. So, where are we now? What, really mid?
That was 23.
Yeah, so mid 24, I guess.
Now,
right to today, sort of thing. What's up for Ryan the next sort of next couple of years?
Same thing. I just want to
when you can
try and make that work when I can. I'm hunting as hard as I possibly can now to do it. I think the challenge now, I think we're getting close to there being way more deals out there, or way more deals being working. And if I gave myself a bit of confidence last year finding a deal that was really great in an environment when there weren't great deals or even good deals. Now I'm seeing some good deals. If I work that hard, I should be able to find another great deal. That's fine. Finding the money's a different story. That's where I'm really trying to put my creative thinking is, how do I pay these? How do I pay for them?
Yeah.
when my lending is pretty squeezed from all sides.
Yeah, yeah.
But I still firmly believe a killer deal will find some money. So that's what I'm first and foremost looking for, killer deals.
Yep, cool, all good, perfect. And yeah, next 12 months I can see a few around. And I've sold a few in the last 12 months also.
Yeah.
And it's just been with, as I said, and we're trying to get on the other side these days of trying to get the best price we can for the vendor, which is really quite unusual from 15. It took me a while to get my head around it, but I thrive on that now.
Yeah.
At the middle of last year especially, there were no buyers around. There weren't that many property around, to be fair.
No.
But there was no buyers around, so some of them got outstanding deals. And did I do, as an agent, do the best deal? Yeah, I did, because no one else wanted to buy it, and that vendor was prepared to sell.
Yeah.
So those deals are there, and I think there's a lot of stock on the market right now. 1 July, I think there's going to be a whole lot more of them. The LVR rules being reduced, and a lot of investors selling, so there'll be a lot more. So that's with an investor hat on. It's happy days, I think, in the next 12 months within reason. It's really spasmodic too, with it. Different suburbs.
Happy, but not easy, eh?
It's not easy.
No, I think it's going to be a great time to buy, but a terrible time to borrow. So it's like,
yeah, and that's been the hardest thing. That's why the market crashed in December 21, because the bank couldn't buy any money 21.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I still very much see myself as a new investor, learning investor, and with very limited means, limited capital. I haven't got much capital to spend, so I need to be that much more creative and find a deal better than the other guy who's finding a deal just for their cash. You know, it's like,
that was for me one of the attractions of getting you on the show, because you, in investment terms, still you are a newish, in your client. It's good, great to hear yourself say that you're a newish investor, and hearing, keeping all that in mind. It's great to just to see where you're at and where you're going, and how the finance works, because you are self-employed. A lot of people, when they start out, and they should be having an income, a regular income, because regular income helps get finance. And I can know from previous days, and you'll know it's hard to get finance when you don't have regular income. You've got to show you have the income when you're self-employed, so they hate it. So that's it's really good to hear how you're going, and you're still having real problems that the first time investor has that you can have later on. And then I guess you come to the diversity and how you go from here on in. I'm not sure how you've thought too much about more of the same, you said, sort of thing. At some stage, I guess you'll go, right, I've got enough, or whatever it is, whether you sell a couple to finance. There are things we don't really need to get into today, but I guess the things you're thinking about one day ahead.
Of course, yeah, totally. I mean, I often see what I'm doing as a way to build that capital, to build, I don't know, either the capital or the income stream or whatever, but there's probably better ways of holding it that, as opposed to what I'm doing, which is the growing it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there's infinite different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And you're probably also not wholesale swapping this style of investing for a different style of investing. I'll start to do a hybrid.
Yeah. And the great thing about property investing, is there's so many ways of doing properly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
One of the great things I love about it. So there's
and same with financing. That's what I'm starting to understand now as well.
And the great thing I heard you say just before we come in was you went to an investment seminar a couple of days ago and talked to someone we both know. He listened to him, and that's what it's all about. It's just keep on learning. The market evolves. It
same
changes.
with the books and the podcast. I still consume the same amount that I did 5 years ago. Just constantly. If I'm in the car, podcast is going.
Yeah.
And I'll go to. So in fact, going to those meetings is something I wish I had known about a lot earlier. It's not just about the information that you get from the people, but just seeing the people, being around other investors. That's if I had known to do that, I'd be 10, 15 years ahead of myself, you know, because I was just by myself, just some guy owning another house, whereas there's so much strategy out there and just so much motivation from other people.
Yeah, and it's important to keep motivated, and that's where you need to educate yourself, because it can be a lonely game, investing.
Yeah,
investing,
it's all hard because nothing's urgent. You know, you don't need to do any of it, and so you can put it off. You can always put it off. But if you do it, the gains are phenomenal. And same with like going to those events. You know, they're 7 o'clock at night. You've finished your day's work. It's like, nah, don't really feel like it. But if you just force yourself to go there, it's really good.
Gee, you finish at 7 o'clock at night. You're bloody lucky. That's all good.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I have missed multiple events because of not finishing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, hey, yeah, this has been a really nice story. Have you got any like passing things you'd like to pass on before we sort of finish up today? And
I think just reiterating what we've said, like take action and talk to other people and educate yourself. Like to me, they're one and the same thing: educating yourself and talking to other people.
Absolutely.
That makes you a bit more deliberate, but you've got to do something.
Yep.
You've got to do something, even if it's the wrong thing. You can't, you can't change directions if you're not moving.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's the wrong things. Interesting. I could spend hours on that and sort of made a few wrong decisions and properly, but I've made a lot of good decisions but taking action. And that one of my things when I first sort of talked to people was, probably a really bad thing to say, but it's almost worth losing 5k in a deal to go through, do the whole thing, learn what you've learned.
Yeah.
If you do the whole thing yourself and go through, the education price of that's priceless.
Yeah.
As long as you learn from it.
It's like, it depends how much that 5k means to you.
Yeah,
I don't mind losing it now, but if it was the very first foray into it, it'd spell the end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. And it does for a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. And same here. Like, there are deals now that would completely derail me if they went wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas, maybe in 5-10 years' time they wouldn't, and you'd be fine and you'd keep on moving. So you've got to kind of, know your limits to that degree, know what you can afford to lose, I suppose.
And that by educating yourself, going to the presentations and what have you, as you said before. So, when you're ready, when you're, the 10 years from when you start a point, or from whatever it might be for you watching this, that's the time you get educated before you get it to delve too deep into it.
Yes. It's definitely a little balancing act between education and action. You know, I could have sat there listening to podcasts forever and done nothing, but
and a lot of people do.
I got enough information to know I had to go and do something, so I went and bought this thing.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. I know you're out of town today. You come in here while you've been in Auckland, so
it was good.
Great to have you online, and thanks for watching and listening. If you got to the end of the podcast, and we'll see you in 2 more weeks with another very exciting podcast you're going to enjoy. So in the meantime, have fun and go and take action. See you later.
See you.